to the Growth Show. This is Pastor Kwame here. As always, my desire is to inspire, impact, and inform. I have a special topic for us to talk about today, so do not go anywhere. Stick around. I'll be right back. To the Growth Show. Today's topic is spiritual family. Spiritual family. Now listen closely. God created the tree to grow from the soil. God created man to grow from the family, and God created the Christian to grow from the church. So God created the right environment, the right nutritional support for a growth of a tree. God now placed man in a family setting for correction, for learning, and for better growth, for training. In the same vein, God created the church for the external nourishment for the believer. Are you understanding me? So your growth is incomplete unless you have the external factors as well. So let me define this for you. Every growth requires both internal and external factors. And by the grace of God, the Holy Spirit does the internal work in your spiritual growth, and the church does the external work. So any Christian who does not go to church is missing spiritual parental guidance, spiritual parental wisdom, spiritual parental discipline, spiritual parental correction, and it's very, very, very incomplete. It's impossible to be spiritually complete without belonging to a church. Now, I know you are going to go to where I'm going, which is the elephant in the room. And let me address the elephant in the room. I'll be right back to talk about the elephant in the room. There's the elephant in the room. Now, in the social setting, there are about 4 types of family. Now we have the healthy family, and the healthy family is defined as a family that resolve their conflict well. There's respect, there is love, there's understanding, and there's like a home where you feel love, you feel cared for. And I mean, they have their own difference, but they resolve it in a very healthy way. And that's the first kind of family, the healthy family. Now we also have the dysfunctional family, where there's constant fight, constant quarreling, and abuse, and all of that. That's a dysfunctional family. And there's a third type, which is the broken family, where the father walks away or the mother walks away, and there is not enough support in the house. And lastly, there's no family at all. You understand? So there is the healthy family, there is the dysfunctional family, and there is a broken family, and there's no family at all. Unfortunately, the same template plays out in their spiritual setting, and so that is where the elephant in the room is. So let me say this: just as there's a healthy family, there's also a healthy church family. Just as there's a dysfunctional family, there's also a dysfunctional church. Just as there's a broken family, there's a broken church, and also there's no church at all. Now here is the argument. Most people now understand that if they find a healthy church, they will go. But it's very difficult nowadays to find a healthy church. There's always a dysfunction, there's always something going on, there's always drama, there's always issues, there's always money, there's always things going on in the church. Now that makes things very, very uncomfortable. Now, but here is the argument, and I want you to do your own homework and do your own assignment. This is the only time I'm not going to give you an answer. The whole thing is that in terms of the order of importance, or the order of priority, or the order of hierarchy, I understand that a healthy church is number one. Number one is a healthy church. I understand that. But now the question is, which one is number 2? If number 1 is not in place, do you prefer a dysfunctional church, a broken church, or a no church at all? And most people think that a no church at all is better than a dysfunctional church, is better than a broken church. But I don't believe so. But I want you to do your own homework. But what we're going to do, when I come back, we're going to go to class, and I'm going to give you the 5 signs of a healthy church. And so it's not good to be in a dysfunctional church. It's not good to be in a broken church. It's not good to be in a no church either. You have to always strive to go to a healthy church. Now, at the absence of a healthy church, the question now becomes, which church do I go to? Do I stay home, or go to the broken church, or go to a dysfunctional church? And it's very difficult to define a broken church and a dysfunctional church. But when we go to class and I talk about the 5 signs of a healthy church that can grow you, then it will give you a good idea about what a broken church is. So pretty much a broken church is a church that does not have all these 5 to give you the support you need. And then dysfunctional church is a church that's always having an issue, that's always having an issue. And trust me, there are some dysfunctional churches that you don't want to even be in there. So we'll be right back to talk about it. But the elephant in the room is that, is it okay for me to stay home when everywhere around me there is a dysfunctional church and broken churches? And the answer, I think we'll find out when we come back. Come to class now. We're going to talk about the 5 signs of a healthy church. There's no perfect church anywhere in this world, and because we are dealing with people, all right? But God has given the mandate of the church to supply these 5 touches. I call it the 5 touches to the believer, so that the believer can grow spiritually. But most importantly, the church gives a lot of different things, but in this class we're talking about the spiritual growth of the believer and what the church does to it. So the church provides support in all kinds of social support, fun, people you can marry, and all of that. It is the benefit of going to a church. But in this class we're talking about the spiritual benefits of going to a church, or the way the church is designed to grow you spiritually. Okay, so the first touch of a healthy church is called the apostolic expression. The apostolic expression. Now, I don't want to get too theological so that I lose the fun of the show. All right, apostolic expression pretty much is it means in practical terms that anytime somebody is standing in front of you in the church you go to, there has to be somebody else above that person that can correct that person when they are going wrong. So apostolic expression means that it can be a leadership body, it can be also a seasoned apostolic ministers that ensure that your local church doesn't have the final say on what they do to you. You understand? All right, so I'm going to give you some examples. So practically, there was a church in the Bible where they were arguing about some ceremonial issues, and then by apostolic expression, Jerusalem Council met and they sought the issue out, and they sent the message back down and said, we have begun to look at it in a very higher way, and we're giving you the order. So any church that you don't have that apostolic expression, there is a danger going on in that church, because the pastor now can tell you to do anything, and then if it is not biblical, because he's above you, you will not know, and you will all kind of drive you into the ditch. So apostolic expressions. But interestingly, every epistle in the Bible is an example of an apostolic expression. The apostles were writing to correct the mess that was going on in the church. So if you don't have any apostle, it doesn't be a person apostle, but it has to be an authority. It has to be a high authority that can come in and sort your church out when things are going wrong. If that thing is not there, in a way, it's like the father figure. You understand? The authority that will cause things to be straightened out. You understand? So in a family setting, let's say your brother is doing something against you, your father comes in and he brings a correction. So in a church setting, the same thing. The apostolic expression is that authority voice that comes in and correct things. If you don't have that in that church, and it's a one-man church with nobody being able to correct him, then there's no apostolic expression. You understand? And that means that you are in a very red flag church, because the pastor can tell you take off your underwear and you will do it, because nobody can come outside who's higher in the spiritual authority to correct him. So a first sign that your church is healthy is that the church has an apostolic expression. The second sign that you are in a healthy church is that the church has a prophetic expression. The prophetic expression is also the prophetic voice which brings current and life into the church. Now, when we talk about prophetic expression, is all of us are limited to a prophetic ministration, which is part of prophetic expression, but it is not only that. The church must be open to the prophetic ministry, and when a church has an apostolic expression, the prophetic expression is safe. But any church without an apostolic expression, if the prophetic expression alone is there, then things can be a little crazy. But a church that refuses the prophetic expression is not a healthy church. Now, the prophetic expression is expressed in prayer, where your prayer, meaning the prayer time, there's a prophetic, in other words, there's a fresh word from God. It's not only just theory from the scripture, but the church allows the prophetic expression, and it flows in prayer meeting, it flows in the worship ministry, it flows in the teaching. So that, in other words, they allow the giftings to begin to flow, and especially the prophetic giftings, and also definitely the prophetic authority is also there with seasoned prophets and gracing the prophets. So without the prophetic ministry, let me just talk to you. Without the prophetic ministry, let me say this. I know it's going to be an interesting take, but I'm sure that if we look at the prophetic words we have received for the churches that believe in the prophetic expression and the fulfillment of it, there's a gap. The prophetic word we have received and the fulfillment of it, there's a gap. If we receive 20 prophecies, maybe only 2 have come to pass. But let me tell you about the 20 that was received. The hope that it gave to people for them to cross over. There are some people we have in the church, if it wasn't for the prophetic word that even has not come to pass yet, they would have thrown in the towel. I see in the face of believers that lives come back to them when God tells them something they are going through that they didn't tell nobody. So without the prophetic expression that comes in that, also in the, I'm using as an example, but the prophetic expression takes all the aspect. In Bible study, there's a prophetic expression. In prayer, when the person is leading the prayer and is able to tap into what God is saying, that is very important. Without that, the church is very cold, and the church will not even grow. The prophetic expression is supposed to cause the church to grow, because it is a powerful ministry. So if your church always speaks against the prophetic expression, they may be attacking the prophets, but I hope they are not attacking the prophetic expression, because the prophetic expression weaves through the whole church. When somebody is leading, we want him to lead by the prophetic expression. When somebody is leading worship, lead by prophetic expression. You know what I'm saying? It's beautiful when the worshiper can tap into the prophetic and begin to flow prophetically in the worship. It's powerful when the leader who is leading the prayer can do it. So pretty much it's powerful when don't you love it when your pastor is preaching, teaching, and then he begins to flow in the prophetic expression? So it's very beautiful. So it must be expression that is flowing in the church. And if your church don't have that, then you are not in a complete church that can really do you good. The third sign of a healthy church is a church that also supplies what we call the pastoral expression. The pastoral expression. Now, in our traditional understanding, when we say a pastor, most people think the one that is preaching or teaching is the pastor. But the pastoral expression is actually not a teaching or a preaching expression. Like I said, if you compare the spiritual family and the physical family, the apostolic expression is more like the father figure. In the same aspect, the pastoral expression is like the mother figure. So a church that has a pastoral expression, a church that has a kind of care, they care about you. There is kind of a care support that is there. In other words, when I say care, it means that, you see, the whole pastor is the picture of a shepherd who is holding a sheep by the neck. You understand? So there's somebody that is tender towards you. The church cares about you. And if you go to a bigger church, the only way they do that is through small groups. If you go to a smaller church, then there's always a community. So if the church loves you, the church care about you. When you sin, they don't attack you. There's somebody that come alongside with you. Then you are in a very good church, you know. So a church that provides pastoral expression is a church that you feel that there's a love there, there's a care over there, and somebody cares about you, somebody call on you, somebody check up on you. But it's not easy for one pastor to do that. So if you go to a church and you ask them, how's your care ministry? Then you are asking them, what is your pastoral expression? When I grieve, how do they take care of me? When I lose my child, how do they take care of me? All of that. So these are called the pastoral expression, the sense that the church cares about you. And God made it like that to put pastors there who will come alongside with you. So pastors are not supposed to preach you. That's a different ministry. Pastors are supposed to come and kind of mother you, kind of support you, kind of love on you, and kind of know that you can count on them. So that's that pastoral expression, to give care to you and to your family, to see how you are doing. I remember I went to visit my spiritual father's appreciation day, and I was sitting down hearing the testimonies, and out of all the 10 people that came to testify, they were all talking about his pastoral expression. He said, if it wasn't for daddy, my son would not have done this. If it wasn't for daddy. So they didn't talk about his prophetic ministry, they were people talking about his pastoral expression, the care, the love that the church gives you. If that is there, that means that the church is supplying a pastoral expression that is healthy, or the fourth sign that your church is healthy, is a church that provides the teaching and the preaching ministry. It's an expression that is seen in the teaching and the preaching ministry, and that is mostly common to most churches, because if you go to church, those are the things you see. A church that is able to teach. The teaching ministry is very critical. Without the teaching ministry, you will not be able to actually grow in the knowledge of God. So a church that has a teaching ministry is a healthy church. You know, a church that preaches alone is not really there. A church that teaches you is a very critical aspect. If you go to a church and they don't teach, there's no teaching ministry, then you cannot really grow in that church. So a teaching ministry is extremely essential. And so that's how you begin to receive stronger things to begin to apply to your life. So the teaching ministry and the preaching ministry is essential to your spiritual life. So the last sign that you are in a healthy church is a church that also provide what we call the evangelistic expression. The evangelistic expression. Now, don't think about the evangelistic expression as an evangelism, but it's a church that begins to equip you to also begin to impact other people. A church that hold your hands and shows you how to do something. You understand? And so without that, if a church does not begin to equip you to do something for God, you are not in a good church. A church must give you something to do for God. It must begin to equip you to touch other lives, equip you to do something for God. So these are the 5 signs that you are in a healthy church. If you have any question about these, you can inbox me and I'll do a show on really the church and some of the ins and outs of a church. But I owe you the explanation about a dysfunctional and a functional church. I'll be back to talk about that. So they did a research in the family setting, and they considered people that were growing up in a dysfunctional home, and people that were growing up in a broken home, and people that were growing up in no home at all. And they realized that somehow, depending on the degree of dysfunctionality, or depending on the degree of the issue that was happening, it was okay for you to belong to a home that has a reasonable degree of dysfunctionality than to be alone. Being alone is being alone physically out of a family is not as dangerous as being alone spiritually. You understand? Now, if you're alone physically, you might be taken advantage of, but if you are strong enough, you can walk out of the house and succeed out of your parents' home. But spiritually, it is impossible for you to survive when you are alone. And I'll talk about that before we close our show today. The devil will destroy you if you don't have a covering. So it is dangerous to not go to church. If you don't go to church at all, it is very dangerous. Now, if you watch Home Alone, when the kid was at home alone and the bad guys came, he faked as if there was another person in the bathroom by playing with a balloon, and that alone scared the person. So a fake church member is better than being alone, because when you are with people, somehow you might disagree, I know, but somehow being in where people are and learning how to see, it's all about learning how to live with people. If you know, it's just few hours that you spend time with church members, and where 2 or 3 are gathered, God is. He didn't say where one is. So pretty much there's a lot of benefit, even if things are not very perfect. So my argument is that it's better to be in a church that is struggling, going through stuff, than to be at home. And now that leads me to my last point. Before we close our show today, I want to give you the 3 things that the church also required from you. It must be a 2-way stream. All right. So I'll be right back to talk about the 3 things that you must bring to the table for the church to grow you. The first thing, that for you to grow in the church, you must be one with the church. You must be one with the church. Another analogy for the church is like a human body. and one plays the eye, one plays the hand, one plays the leg. And so if you are going to grow in the church, you must be one with the church. You cannot be a visitor. You can't just be a pew warmer and the church will grow you. You must immerse yourself, because if I eat, my fingernails don't eat, but my fingernail gets supply because it is connected to my body. If I drink water, my toes don't drink water, but somehow it gets water because it's connected to my body. And so if you're going to grow in any church, you must be one with the church. You can't pick and choose what you do inside the church and grow. Not at all. The blood of the church must run through you. The blessing must run from the top and connect. So you must be one with the church. You cannot grow in any church, no matter how powerful it is, if you detach yourself, if you are not connected with the church and one with it in dream, in vision, and everything. You must be in the center of it. You must be a part of it for you to grow. All right. And the second thing that you must do to grow in the church is that you must function in the church. There's a phrase in the Bible called every joint supply. You cannot be in the church and you don't do anything. For example, if a part of my body is not doing anything, it is called disabled. You understand? So you are part of one body, Jesus being the head and we playing parts. You must identify what the Holy Spirit plays in you when you got born again, and you must practice that in the church. The doctor practice in the hospital, the teacher practice in the school, the lawyer practice in the courtroom, the Christian practice in the church. So you must belong to a ministry and you must supply your end. If whatever it is, if it's giving, if it is sharing, you must make sure you are doing something inside the church, else you cannot grow. To grow in the church, you must work with the church. First thing, to grow, you must work in and you must be one with. But lastly, to grow in the church, you must work with the church. And that's very important. Some people are working, but they are working alone in the church. They are doing their own thing and they are not including the church with it. If you do that, you are not growing the church. It is a dysfunction. And for example, if my fingernail is not working, it's not good. But if my fingernail is working and growing bigger than my whole body, it's also not good. So the fact that you are working doesn't mean you are growing in the church. You must work with the whole church so that it can be a collective. You can't have your own prayer something. You can't have your own prophetic something. It must be together in the church. So it's good we want you to work it, but you want to work with, not just on your own. So these are things that will cause you to grow. So I hope you learned something today. So take these 5 signs and ask yourself, am I in a church that is growing me? And I'm also playing my part. But I want to sound my final word by saying that it is extremely important that you understand that church is God's idea. And I've searched all over and I couldn't find any idea that is better than God's idea. History shows that what God says is true. History shows that God is always right. So if God gives you the church, trust me, you can't substitute with anything. Without a healthy church, you cannot grow spiritually. God bless you.